Hi, this is Ken once again. Welcome to Prayer Line. Precious one, I want you to know that today is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Today, I just want to brief you on some of the end times news and for us as believers to get ourselves ready for the soon return of our Lord Jesus Christ. Whether you like it or not, Jesus Christ is coming very soon, and update news of people who have had near-death experience are saying that it is no more Jesus is coming soon, but he is on the way. He is on his way. So any moment from now, you can be expecting the King of Kings to come and rapture the saints. I know there are people who don't even believe in the rapture, but whether you believe it or not, one day it's going to certainly happen. The unfortunate thing is that every day I come around believers and I realize that people who are called believers, they are not conscious, or they don't seem to know the urgency of the soon return of our Lord Jesus Christ. People don't have the sense of urgency that Jesus Christ is coming very soon, and they are just living their normal life as it is. I hope and I wish that you and I will always be like the 5 wise virgins who were trimming their lamps and were expecting their bridegroom. Don't be like the foolish ones who are just living anyhow. It's unfortunate that a lot of Christians, if you watch my ministry, sometimes I do evangelism. I talk to people about getting them saved. Sometimes I help people with their personal deliverance. Sometimes I like to encourage people. But the prophetic part of my ministry is to warn people, and that's one of the most essential of my ministry now, is to warn believers to the soon return of our Lord Jesus Christ and how we can get ourselves ready, and also prayer. So but it seems people are interested in every other thing, but when it comes to prophecies to the soon return of Jesus, they are not interested. And you wonder whether these individuals or Christians are really waiting for Jesus. They are not expecting his coming. And it seems they don't want him to come. It baffles my mind sometimes how some people don't care about the soon return of Jesus Christ, and even when they hear about it, they don't care about it. It seems they wish he doesn't even come. And I'm wondering, what kind of Christians are we if we are not anticipating? It seems that people are content and people love this present world, and they're okay with it. But I look forward for this blessed home that Jesus has for us, because if you look left and right and you hear the news going all around us, you realize that something definitely is going to be happening one of these days. And that's why today I want to see you through some of the update of what's going on. What I have first is I want to talk to you about the fact that there is still conflict going on in the Middle East about the Iranians and the Israelis, and how the Israelis are trying to attack the uranium site in Iran. And as much as Iran is trying to speed their process to get the nuclear bombs, the Israelis are trying to stop them as fast as they can. The Americans are trying to delay the Israelis as much as they can, because Obama wants to make sure that his second term of office is secured, which I am predicting, not prophesying. I'm predicting that Obama is going to win the second term of office. No two ways about it. I'm so convinced about that. How? I just know. For some reason I know he's going to win the second term of office. Not because I'm a Democrat. No. I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in the Democrats or Republicans. To me, they are all the same. When they open their mouth, it's all about lies. They don't speak the truth. Obama came, yes we came, change is coming. When he came, no change. Republicans, Bush would send your sons and daughters and your loved ones to foreign soils and get them killed, lie to you about weapons of mass destruction, and there's not any weapons of mass destruction, and just make money out of wars. George Bush Sr., read my lips. I will not raise tax. When he came, he raised tax. You cannot trust politicians. So I'm a political atheist. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not independent. I am all for Jesus Christ. However, I believe that Obama is going to be the second. He's going to be in a second term of office. He's going to be running with Mitt Romney, and then he'll be elected. And then I believe things will just keep on being what it is and even worse. But what I want to tell you is that Obama's administration is doing their possible best to delay Israel from striking Iran, because they know that they have to make sure that they don't send Americans in another war. It could affect the election. But the Israelis are also bent on trying to stop the Iranians as quickly as possible before they get to that zone of immunity where they cannot really do much. And the Iranians are also working hard to get it.
Story now on that new report coming in saying that the U.S. thinks that Azerbaijan has recently granted Israel access to air bases along its border with Iran. If true, that means the Israelis could strike Iran's nuclear facilities without having to refuel, and that is a big change in Israel's military situation. John Bolton is the former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. Hello, Mr. Ambassador.
Hi, Allison. Glad to be here.
So if these new reports are correct, that Israel is now being granted access to Azerbaijan, what does this mean?
Well, I'd say two things. One, substantively, obviously Israel can do the math and the geography, and if it can get positions closer to Iran's nuclear targets to be able to attack them, that's so much the better from Israel's point of view. Israel knows how difficult preemptive military attack would be, and it's not surprising if these reports are true, and I'm not commenting one way or the other whether they are. But I think there's another point here beneath the substantive point, and that is that these reports come from American intelligence officials. Now, if you think back a month or so ago, Defense Secretary Panetta said publicly that he thought if Israel attacked Iran, it would be in the April, May, June period. And I think the reason he did that was that the Obama administration's private effort to pressure Israel not to attack Iran were failing, and they had decided to go public. I think this leak today is part of the administration's campaign against an Israeli attack.
Yeah, in fact, you're not alone. There are reports today in Israel News that, in fact, the U.S. is leaking this classified information in order to dissuade Israel. So why is the U.S. doing that?
I think the Obama administration has long believed that an Israeli attack was worse than an Iranian nuclear weapon. The president says that containment and deterrence of Iran is not his policy, and I think today that's true. But it's his plan B. It's his backup plan when his current efforts at sanctions fail and diplomacy fails and Iran gets nuclear weapons. And I think that the pressure that the administration has put on Israel has been just merciless behind the scenes. But nonetheless, as I say, every evidence is that the pressure's failing, that the Israeli government will do what they think is necessary. So the Obama administration has torqued it up a notch, and now they're going to reveal very sensitive, very important information that will allow Iran to defeat an Israeli attack. I think that's what's going on.
So if Israel does take advantage of these Azerbaijani airstrips or places that they can launch from, what does that mean for the U.S.?
Well, I'm not saying I have any knowledge about anything in Azerbaijan, but what it means is that the likelihood of an Israeli attack would be more successful because the distances are shorter. They can have their planes over the target for longer periods of time. They have to worry less about aerial refueling. There are a whole host of reasons why being able to attack from closer in positions makes sense. So releasing this information so that the Iranians now know about it takes away a potentially very powerful mode of attack that hitherto the Israelis had been able to keep secret.
Former Ambassador John Bolton, thanks so much for your expertise.
Very soon, now the United States has increased its sanctions on Iran. Upon all the sanctions we've been placing upon them, which is an act of war anyways, they have now gone on to even increase it. What is going to happen is that very soon, is going to cause gas prices to increase very much. gas prices are going to shoot up. And when gas price goes up, it affects food, affects everything else. Fuel truck company were planning to go on strike. And when they were even thinking of it, the Prime Minister came and told the Britain people that, hey, these guys are going to go on strike. So if you have your car, make sure it's full. It brought panic, and it brought in gas shortage and high prices in gas, and a lot of cars were queuing for gasoline and chaos. This is what I believe is going to happen.
Parts of the UK have been gripped by a wave of petrol panic buying after the government warned that motorists should stock up. A threatened strike by British fuel tanker drivers has seen sales surging by more than 80%. Meanwhile, in some areas of southwest England, queues have become so long that police have ordered some petrol stations to close. Paul Brennan has more.
It began with the Prime Minister's cautious advisory.
There's an opportunity to top up your tank if a strike is potentially on the way, then it's a sensible thing if you're able to do that.
Then another minister started talking about stockpiling jerry cans. A minor precaution developed into a full-blown petrol panic. At gas stations across the UK, fearful motorists have been filling up their tanks in anticipation of, well, no one's exactly sure.
I think some of the things said have perhaps meant that some people have rushed out and thought that there's more of a crisis than there really is. There is no crisis.
Yes, a strike by fuel tanker drivers would quickly cause serious petrol shortages. But the union must first give a minimum 7 days' notice before any strike can take place. No strike date has actually been set, and talks to resolve the dispute are ongoing. Opposition politicians are accusing the government of actually creating the crisis.
I think they've presided over complete shambles and chaos. And I think the people of Britain are having to queue at petrol stations. You know, there was no strike date set.
One motoring chain has reported a 467% rise in demand for petrol cans. Petrol sales have shot up by 81%, diesel by 43%, according to the Petrol Retailers Association.
Started off with 10% increased trade on Monday, third on Tuesday, culminating with 90% extra yesterday.
Motorists themselves have been left confused and unsure.
Normally I'd perhaps wait till the weekend, but I thought I'd better do it today.
Because I've got a business to run, got to work, so I've got to have fuel in the car.
The T-shirts on sale in this petrol station have a slogan from the wartime Britain of the 1940s, but keep calm and carry on has taken a whole new relevance. Paul Brennan.
If Israel is to strike Iran, and if there should be tension between Israel and Iran is to be engaged, if Israel is to engage in Iran with any world war, which could trigger into a third world war, gas prices is going to look this bad. And I'm going to show you some videos about what went on in UK, and you can imagine that happening here and happening all over the world. But even with all these sanctions on Iran, they supply the world with a lot of oil, gas. It's also going to cause gas price to be shooting up. So I'm believing that as we are moving to April, May, June, July, August, things are going to really change. Things are going to change. I told you from my previous videos that after February, you can count on it that things are going to be getting worse. And also there's still friction between the United States and Israel, because Israelis believe that the United States are releasing some sensitive information about how they want to attack the Iranians, and the Obama administration is doing all this because they are trying to slow Israel down. And so the relationship between the United States and Israel is not as strong as it should be.
In our last hour, we learned that the White House is moving ahead with new sanctions on Iranian oil to punish Tehran for its nuclear program. The president deciding that there is enough crude oil on the world markets to take this step without harming the U.S. or its allies. But this comes after explosive accusations that the White House leaked classified information to stop Israel from attacking Iran. Yesterday on our show, former Ambassador John Bolton called out the administration after reports surfaced that Israel had been granted access to airfields in Azerbaijan. That's along Iran's northern border. Let's listen.
I think that the pressure that the administration has put on Israel has been just merciless behind the scenes. But nonetheless, as I say, every evidence is that the pressure's failing, that the Israeli government will do what they think is necessary. So the Obama administration has torqued it up a notch, and now they're going to reveal very sensitive, very important information that will allow Iran to defeat an Israeli attack. I think that's what's going on.
So does this jeopardize our relationship with Israel? Let's ask Fox News national security analyst KT McFarland. KT, great to see you.
Great to be with you.
Do you agree with Ambassador Bolton and what he said yesterday that the U.S. is intentionally leaking this classified information to undermine Israel and get it to stop whatever plans it has to attack Iran?
Well, the administration doesn't want any kind of a problem in the Middle East before the election. They don't want an Israeli attack on Iranian sites because they think it'll lead to a regional war, draw the United States in. They don't want that kind of a situation because they think it'll lead to high oil prices, high gasoline prices. The way I think about it right now is it's like a foot race where everybody's racing. You've got Iran racing to get to the finish line of getting nukes as fast as they can. You have Israel racing to stop Iran from making those nukes. And you have the United States racing to stop Israel from stopping Iran.
I mean, of course the U.S. doesn't want to be drawn into another war. Nobody wants another war. That's
Even Israel doesn't want another war.
Of course. I mean, that's logical. Is there any way for Iran to take whatever action it feels necessary without the U.S. getting dragged into something?
Well, the question is it one of time? You know, how much time does everybody have left? And I've got to tell you, the people who know aren't talking, and the people who are talking probably don't know. The question is, does Iran get to that finish line before the election? Does Israel realize that it only has a certain amount of time, so it's got to have some preemptive attack? Or, as President Obama is saying today, do we let sanctions work? There's enough time. Those sanctions are somehow going to get the Iranians to go to the negotiating table and give up their nukes. However, they have not up until this point.
But what about this other question of the U.S. possibly leaking classified information and compromising Israel if, in fact, nobody knew that there were air bases at Azerbaijan that were going to be made available? What does this do to the relationship with Israel?
I think the bigger problem this week was not so much the leaking of information about the Azerbaijan airfields that Israel might or might not use. You know, look, Israel's trying to hedge all of its bets. It's looking for friends. It's looking for military capabilities. It's looking for sabotaging the Iranian program. It's looking for assassinating potential Iranian scientists involved in that program. But to me, the bigger problem was that open mic. When President Obama leaned over to the Russian leader and said, "Don't worry, after the election I'll have more flexibility." Now, these are the same Russian leaders who have just spent 6 months trashing the United States in their election campaign. If you're the country of Israel and you're the Prime Minister of Israel and you're listening to that and you're hearing an American president saying, "Once I'm reelected, there'll be a different deal," you've got to wonder, hey, this is the guy who just said, "I've got your back. Don't worry, we're not going to let Iran get nuclear weapons." You've got to wonder that after Obama is reelected, if he is, can Israel count on his word?
I see, because it makes it seem as though the president is disingenuous.
To everybody. You have to wonder, where's the truth here? And if Obama is saying to Israel, wait till after the election, whatever you do, wait till after the election, you got to wonder if after the election, is he still your friend?
Let's talk about what he announced today in terms of the sanctions on these foreign financial institutions that do business with Iran. What impact will that have, do you think?
There are a couple of things going on with these sanctions. We've had sanctions for years with Iran. They haven't stopped Iran's behavior. We're now into a new phase of sanctions, and these are basically targeting the Iranian banking system. And it's like think of it as putting like a great big embargo around Iranian oil, but you're using banks instead of battleships. What's the objective? What are you trying to do with these sanctions? Well, one idea, the administration says that the Iranians will realize that they've got to go to the negotiating table and negotiate away their nukes. I think that's naive. The closer Iran gets to those nukes, they're going to race to that finish. The other objective might be to say to the Iranians, to the Iranian people, things are so bad, You should go out into the streets again, topple your regime the way the Egyptians did, the way the Syrians are trying to do, the way the Libyans have done, the way the Moroccans have done, and then maybe Iran under different leadership has a different plan.
Well, yes, except that Iran tried that. The Iranians tried that, and we didn't necessarily have their backs.
Totally. We snuffed them. I mean, that was, in fact, I think, the beginning of the Arab Spring, when the Iranian people went to the streets in 2009. The question will be now for this administration, if the Iranian people go to the streets again, and I'm not saying they will, but if they were, would this president then welcome them the same way that he welcomed the Egyptians who went to the streets?
So do you think that's the answer? To foment an uprising there?
They're lousy options. We either bomb Iran, let Iran get the bomb. Those are two losers. You know, one is a regional war, one is a nuclear Iran. Is there a third option? Is there an option C? I think it's a long shot, but I would go for option C, try to crash their economy using the oil weapon.
All right, KT McFarland, thanks so much. Always good to have your expertise.
And so, and there's also friction in the Middle East. And I want you to know that these are all signs of the end times. When you want to know and understand prophecies, get to understand what is going on in Jerusalem, getting on in Israel and their enemies, and then you know that the time is very close. I want all believers to wake up. Jesus is coming soon. I don't care how you are enjoying yourself and how, Jesus is coming soon. You better get ready, unless you end up being like the 5 foolish virgins who will be left behind. The church ways of operating is over. It is time you look up, for your redemption draweth now. Very soon the trumpet will sound, and Jesus is coming for his saints. Are you ready to be raptured? Are you ready to be with the Lord Jesus Christ? Things are changing so rapidly, so you got to get yourself ready.
Nobody knows the day or the hour of the coming of the Messiah. He will come like a thief. But what the Lord has displayed here very clearly is that this war is related to the coming of the Messiah. It may be that when this war takes place sharp like this, then it takes 3-4 months or 1 year, and Israel signs the 7-year deal, peace deal.
Alafu Israeli itaeka sahihi yale makubaliano ya amani ya miaka 7.
After 3 years, 1 year, 3 days, who knows?
Baada ya miaka 3, mwaka 1, siku 3, nani ajuae?
So nobody can say that when that war takes place, the rapture happens the same day.
Basi hakuna mtu awezaye kusema kwamba wakati vita hivi vitatendeka, unyakuzi unatendeka siku hiyo hiyo.
Today here,
leo hapa,
as I was playing for you the clips,
nilipokuwa nikiwachezea hizo awamu,
the reportage on this war,
ripoti juu ya vita hivi,
the Lord stole me into a trance.
Bwana aliniiba katika usingizi kidogo.
And I saw a lot of Israeli aircraft on the runway.
Na nikaona ndege nyingi za Kiisraeli pale kwa runway,
at high speed taking off.
Zikiwa kwenye kasi ya juu kabisa zinaanza safari.
And I heard the voice saying,
na nikasikia sauti ikasema,
look, this war has broken out.
Tazama, hivi vita vimelipuka.
And there is a follow-up vision most recently,
na kuna maono ya kufuatilia hivi majuzi kabisa,
when the Lord again showed me the aircrafts.
Wakati mara tena Bwana alinionyesha ndege.
And by voice he said,
na kwa sauti akasema,
look, the war has broken out.
Tazama, vita vimelipuka.
The war has broken out.
Vita vimelipuka.
So this war is related to the coming of the Messiah.
Na kwa hivyo vita hivi vinaambatana na kuja kwake Masia.
While nobody may know the day or the hour,
wakati hakuna mtu anaweza kujua siku wala saa,
the rapture could happen right before the war.
Unyakuzi pia waweza kutendeka kabla ya hivyo vita.
Such that when the war takes place, then they announce one peace deal right away there and then.
Kiasi ya kwamba wakati vita vile vitatendeka, mara moja wanatangaza ule mkubaliano wa amani papo hapo.
Or
ama
the rapture could happen after this war.
Unyakuzi pia waweza kutendeka baada ya hivi vita.
But the most important thing,
lakini jambo la muhimu sana,
the most important message that today's news,
ujumbe wa muhimu zaidi ambao habari za leo,
screams out to the church
zinatokeza kwa kanisa
is that time is over.
ni kwamba wakati umekwisha. Nani wanaenda kupigana?
Now you know it for yourself.
Sasa unajijulia mwenyewe
That war
kwamba hivyo vita
has a lot to do with the coming of the Messiah.
vina mengi sana kuhusiana na kuja kwake Masia.
That war
Hilo vita
has so much to do with the rapture of the church.
vina mengi kabisa kuambatana na unyakuzi wa kanisa.
What I've shared tonight
Kile ambacho nimeshiriki usiku wa leo
is not for laughing,
si vya kuchekea
is not laughable,
na si vya kucheka
is not to be taken lightly.
wala si vya kuchukuliwa kirahisi.
This
Haya
touches on the very eternity of people.
yanagusia kwa umilele wa watu.
Nobody can ever smile at this.
Hakuna mtu anayeweza kutabasamu kwa haya.
Because today,
Manake leo
I have been surprised
nimeshtuliwa
that among the prophecies I've ever given across the earth,
ya kwamba miongoni mwa unabii ambao nimewahi kupeana kote kote duniani,
this prophecy of the nuclear war coming to Iran
huu unabii wa vita vya nyuklia vijavyo Irani
is the one I have brought extensively across the entire face of the earth and severally.
ndivyo ambavyo nimetabiri kote kote kwa urefu na upana katika pembe zote za dunia, tena mara kwa mara.
And we know it, precious people,
Na twayajua watu wa dhamani
that it is said
kwamba inasemwa hivi
that end time Bible prophecy
ya kwamba unabii wa Biblia wa nyakati za mwisho
that touches on the church
unaogusia kanisa
and the coming of the Messiah
na kuja kwake Masia
gravitates
unazunguka
around the state of Israel.
unazunguka taifa la Israeli.
And today we've seen it here,
Na leo tumeiona hapa
that Israel is sitting at the center of biblical prophecy.
ya kwamba Israeli imeketi katikati mwa unabii wa Biblia.
But I want to say one thing,
Lakini nataka kusema jambo moja,
that may the Lord bless you.
kwamba Bwana na awabariki.
May the Lord open your eyes.
Sema dhiki.
Listen to me, precious people.
Nisikizeni watu wa dhamani.
The Israel-Iran war
Vita vya Israeli na Irani
that is going to take place
vinavyokwenda kutendeka
will be so severe
vitakuwa vikali sana
that there will be a hit back,
ya kwamba kutakuwepo na kulipiza,
where Iran hits back.
ambapo sasa Irani italipiza
And it's going to be a flare-up,
na itakuwa kuwaka kukuu sana,
and it will be led by Russia.
na vitaongozwa na Urusi.
As you can see today,
Kama vile mweza kuona leo
in the news I am going to read for you here,
katika habari inaenda kuwasomeeni hapa,
how Russia wants,
jinsi ambavyo Urusi inaonya,
Russia wants Israel and United States
Urusi inawaonya Israeli na Umoja wa Majimbo ya Marekani
from attacking Iran.
kwamba wasije wakavamia Iran.
So you begin to see the central role of Russia
Kwa hivyo waanza kuona sehemu ya ukatikati ya Urusi
in this war.
katika vita hivi.
Even the nuclear plants in Iran,
Hata vile vituo vya nyuklia kule Iran
they have been built by Russia.
vimejengwa na Urusi.
I want to read for you a lot of news reportage here from Haaretz newspaper, which is an Israeli newspaper.
Nataka kuwasomeni ripoti nyingi za habari hapa toka katika gazeti la Kiisraeli linaitwa Haaretz.
But when this war takes place,
Lakini wakati vita hivi vitatendeka,
it will be so severe
vitakuwa vikali mno,
to cause Israel to sign a peace treaty for 7 years.
vitasababisha Israeli kusahihisha makubaliano ya amani kwa miaka 7.
A false peace treaty.
Na yatakuwa makabiliano ya uongo ya amani.
And that means when this war takes place,
Na hiyo inamaanisha kwamba wakati vita hivi
it
vitatendeka,
happens at the time when the rapture is here.
vitatendeka wakati ambapo unyakuzi uko hapa.
Because
Kwa sababu
when it takes place,
vitakapotendeka,
Israel is compelled to sign a 7-year peace treaty, a false one.
Israeli italazimika iingie katika makubaliano ya amani ya uongo
With the Arab states and Russia,
na mataifa ya Kiarabu na Urusi,
the enemies of God.
na maadui wa Mungu.
That is the tribulation.
Na hiyo ndio dhiki.
The rapture has happened.
Unyakuzi umetendeka.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Drank a lot and partied a lot, and I was moved to Tucson, Arizona, and I was working at a construction site, and one of the guys brought some water from Mexico that was contaminated. And I ended up drinking it by accident. Got real sick, contracted cholera, and within about 72 hours I was flat on my back and basically dehydrated. That's when I passed away. I noticed that when I passed on, that of course I wear glasses and I'm very nearsighted. I noticed that, first thing I noticed is that I wasn't wearing my glasses and I could see clearly across the room. And when I turned my head, I noticed that my body wasn't moving. And I was lifted right out of my body and hovered over my body, looking down at myself and looking around. And next thing I knew, I went through the ceiling of the room I was in, and I was transported into a very, very, very black, dark void. I could hear like somebody speaking to me, like telepathy. And it was explaining to me many, many things that I no longer remember, but most of the idea was explaining to you the whys of life, why there was evil in the world, why this, why, people have questions all the time. These were being answered to you as you were being transported to this light. And time you got to where the light was, you knew what happened, you know what's going on. You know what happened. You know you died. You know you're going to be judged. And everything as you're traveling, it's made so clear to you that what's happening is perfectly just and right. Oh, yeah. This one vortex was spinning, and a lady that just died in a car wreck came through, and she was deposited right there. And I saw her as she arrived, and inside her cube, she saw it as the illusion of her grandmother's farm, her grandparents' farm that she loved so well as when she was growing up. And her grandmother recently passed away too, so she got in this cube, and immediately she thought she was in heaven because there was her grandmother waiting there welcoming her. The grandmother that was actually a demon that gave the illusion of being the grandmother said, "Dear Pudding, you made it to heaven. I'm so glad you're here." And she really thought that she was in paradise. But there was a darker side to her. She would make her children be what she wanted. Her children wanted something else. She wanted them to be this. And if they didn't do it her way, it was the fist. It was verbal abuse. It was cutting down. So as she sat down, I was watching it, and the tree's limbs just grabbed her. And then she realized she was not in paradise. And as we passed some cubes, there were people inside, and they were trapped in flames. And it was like their skin was still intact, but they were burning. And there was an individual, and he was playing pool. And this guy was a child serial killer, but he lived in the 1940s. But he was in this pool hall playing this pool before the punishments would commence again. He thought he had a break. And then these people in there would torment him and come and run and just grab him and tear him up. And out of the sky I could see this big demon coming down. It reminds me of a snake. He just gobbled him and swallowed him. Then all the other little demons came up and said, "That's no fair. We didn't have our chance with him yet." After he regurgitated him back up, he was whole. I know it sounds really bizarre, but that's what happened. Then all the other little demons, little teeny things, about 3 foot tall, just jumped on him. And he was powerless. And they were beating and clawing, and there was no rest for this guy whatsoever after that. It was constant torment. Everything that he ever done was being justly put back to him. Came to a cube. I was looking at this, and this was a woman. She was dressed in fine garb. She was a temple prostitute, basically what it was. And she was somebody who died in Corinth around 69 AD. For a price, she would have a newborn son. For some reason, their religion was some strange thing. When you have a newborn son, you can offer it into a statue, and there's flame underneath the statue. You put the baby on the statue, and basically the baby would be cooked. And here she is in this temple. There was no let up to her torment. It was almost like all the little babies that she burned that were hers and other people's were tormenting her, mocking her, pouncing on her, just crawling and tearing her up. And she just screamed, and I had to turn away and walk. There's an individual that she practiced the black dark craft. She was a witch. I just knew that she was a witch, but she died many hundreds of years ago. But she was trapped in a coffin, scratching, trying to get out. She couldn't get out. She was in that position for years and years and years and years, hundreds of years. And then finally, when she got it open, all the demons would pounce on her. And I walked on to another cube. We looked in this other cube on this row, and there was another lady. And she believed that Mother Earth could save her. And that if she honored the trees and the rocks, and she was into this nature thing, and part of their religious practice that she would practice would be getting out in the fields and dancing around a fire with a bunch of other people doing the same. The people that she thought that she was with were actually demons, and they would come up to her and say, "You did this." They pick up a stone. You say, "The stone will save you here," and they smacked her with it. So she was standing there, and the demons reached down there and reached in her mouth, ripped out her tongue and part of her thing. It says, "You talk bad? Oh, the stones are not going to save you. Nobody can save you." Then they ripped off her, just actually took her skin and just peeled it off. It was really slow and agonizing to shreds. It had nothing to do with skeletons. Then they took the bones and broke the bones. And she felt everything. And then her body would come back together. The flesh would come back together. And she'd be whole again. And it would start all over again. A different scene would happen. And some of the cruelest people on earth were in these. Some people, I don't like to say names of people or anything like that, but I will, this one particular individual is definitely there, and everybody knows who it is. It's Adolf Hitler. Hitler was sitting in a cube. It was open, and it was just burning flames. Hitler was sitting in a cube. It was open, and it was just burning flames. He's just sitting there burning. And his flesh wasn't burning, and he had this hideous look on his face. And as he was burning, the flesh would be rotting, and he was feeling every bit of it. It was almost like every oven of the gas, of the concentration camps, all the tortures that went on there were being meted back to him in one intense flaming bit of stoked up white hot heat that would rot his flesh away at the same time, make him ashes, come back. He was just being tormented like that. He was just, I remember having a weird look on his eyes. It was just angry, vicious anger.